Hiya folks, so today I have B with me from the Detox method, and to say the least, I'm exceptionally excited to have her on board because I am a bit of a geek when it comes to biohacking the body in any possible way, and the lymphatic drainage system plays a huge role in just our overall health. And so today I have one of the experts out there with me. We'll actually run through what the lymphatic system is, do's and don'ts when it comes to lymphatic drainage, and a couple of other bits and pieces when it comes to technique. But welcome, B. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me to share some hopefully great informative tips with all of your followers.
Oh, for sure. There is no doubt about that at all. And did you want to give us a bit of an insight into, I guess, the background of B and the Detox method?
I started in beauty therapy and also fitness instructing about 20 odd years ago now. And I was lucky enough to do some training in London that took me into a contract working on cruise ships around the world as a body treatment specialist. And one of the key components of every body treatment that I did was lymphatic drainage. Back then, it was really a very niche area. No one really knew much about it. And I could see all of the results that I would get from these clients and was very moved by this form of treatment. Yeah. But it's only really come to light in Australia probably in the last 5 years. And I'm gone back and done some extra training and really excited to combine the traditional manual lymphatic drainage technique with all of the other tips and different tricks that I've learned over the years through health and fitness and wellbeing and traditional beauty facialist techniques and massage techniques to create my very own method of lymphatic drainage and health and wellbeing.
Yes, and I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to experience this. And what I loved about the experience as a whole is not only the treatment itself, but you actually, when you're as part of the experience, you actually inform others and educate others about their lymph system. And I think for me, I'm such a sponge when it comes to it. And it's the takeaway that I got as part of the treatment. So while I had this beautiful experience with the treatment, I actually walked away going, oh, okay, so that's how it works. That's why I should do it this way, etc. So yeah, I really like how it's all encompassing. And I think we were discussing this as well, that Australia is a little bit behind the 8 ball when it comes to stuff like this. This has been rotating, particularly out in like Los Angeles and things like that. I know a lot of influencers that have been doing this for yonks, but it just kind of seems to be edging into the Australian market slowly now.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. Well, do you want to start off by giving us an overview of like the lymphatic drainage, the lymph system, and then we can move into lymphatic drainage and why it's so important?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. So the lymphatic system makes up, there's 2 parts of the body's greater circulatory system. So everyone knows the heart. Yep. The heart is a part of pumping blood around the body through the veins. Yep. Now, if you've got that as one system, then sitting right beside that is the thoracic duct. And the thoracic duct is a part of the lymphatic system that basically works to push lymphatic fluid throughout the body as a second part of the body's circulatory system. It doesn't have veins. It has what we call lymphatic vessels. So you've got veins carry blood to the heart, lymphatic vessels carry lymphatic fluid back to the thoracic duct. Yep. So that's basically what the lymphatic system is in the body. Yep. And then what it does, because that's obviously the most important thing, it works as basically like the rubbish disposal system of the body, the detox plant, however you like to call it. It basically carries all of the nasties out of our system. So that's viruses, pathogens, bacteria, toxins from bad lifestyle, processed foods, alcohol, and it basically works to filter all of the nasties out and makes your body function better.
Yeah. And I remember you saying that, so our circulatory system works on a pump, is that right? Whereas the lymphatic drainage system doesn't have, so the circulation is created by the heart for the blood, but the lymphatic drainage system there's nothing actually pumping it around the body. So that's why lymphatic drainage is actually really important. Is that right?
Spot on. Yeah, exactly. So without it, so there's more litres of lymphatic fluid in the human body than there is blood. And so when you think of the job that then already there's so much blood in the body being moved by the heart with the pump, but with the lymphatic system not having that, it's got a really hard job, and it takes 24 to 72 hours to move the amount of lymphatic fluid that a human has throughout their body, which would normally, the heart does that easily. The lymphatic system struggles. So lymphatic drainage is the process of stimulating the lymph nodes. And without going and going to too much detail, which is why I find this really hard, I'm like, want to say more? Can't say that. Oh no,
let it rip.
I know I could just go forever, so I'm trying to keep it really succinct and digestible for everyone. But basically, when you get run down, and everyone will sort of say, oh, I've got swollen glands. That's not actually glands. What it is, it's enlarged lymph nodes, and that's the first sign that your body's trying to tell you, I'm either run down, my body's under attack, whatever it is. And the lymph nodes are enlarged because they are pulled with all of this bacteria, virus, pathogen, whatever it is, and it's trying to process that for you.
Yeah.
So lymphatic drainage is a process of coming at these lymph nodes, and they are, as soon as I say this again, people will understand why they used to be called glands, because again, when you're, if you're female and you're hormonal, around the breast under the armpit gets really tender. Yeah. Around the groin area can get really tender, and all around jaw, throat. So they're the major sort of main points of nodes that people say they can relate that to being, oh yes, I know when I feel run down or I've been sick and I have felt those areas being inflamed or tender. So those lymph nodes are the main processing plants. So lymphatic drainage is the process of opening up those lymph nodes and helping to release the toxins and nasties that are sitting in there and get them moving through the body for the body to process greater, rather than having these almost like traffic jams where, the rubbish truck's trying to come through to take away all the nasty bacteria, and then it gets stuck at a lymph node to drop it off, but there's a problem there. So that lymph node keeps swelling and swelling and swelling until, it gets released and your body can start fighting it and getting better.
Yeah.
So that's what lymphatic drainage does.
So it ultimately, the nodes capture any pathogens or toxins and then holds onto it. And it's kind of like, as you said, the rubbish disposal site. But then it's up to us to keep that moving, because if it gets too clogged up, that's where the pile of rubbish starts to build, and that's where we start to feel the expansion of those nodes. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes, okay. Perfect.
I just find it so fascinating. And like we were geeking out to the max. Like when I went in, I was like, tell me more.
We were. We were.
So one thing I didn't actually know until you told me was, we can probably start moving into like technique when it comes to lymph drainage, but is that the lymph system moves in one direction? Is that correct? Or have
correct.
I gotten that
You've
totally
done
wrong?
so well at remembering all this information, Danielle. I love it. Not surprising, of course, because you're a lot of knowledge of all things. But yeah, no, you're right. So the lymphatic system, the valves or the vessels, they only run in one way. So it's like a one-way valve that can't flow back down within itself. So generally speaking, they are upwards towards the heart. Yeah. Or if I'm being more specific and technical, it's actually upwards towards the closest lymph node. Okay. But you're right, up. Around the stomach is different, because the stomach, you think we've got your colon and whatnot, everyone sends pictures, or your brain, it's all gnarly. So anything that's not a limb that's long, that can change somewhat. But the rule of thumb is, yes, lymphatic system is up towards the heart or up towards the nearest lymph node.
Okay. And this is where the technique comes into play, because I was someone that was just like with the brush up and down the arms, and I learned something about, it's almost like an unlock system working back towards the heart. So do you want to run us through that? I'm surprised I've actually maintained this much info.
I love it. No, and that's so true, Daniela. And so basically with the brushing, which most people now have heard of dry brush or have seen a dry brush around, and a lot of people will circular movement or really up and down, but you're dead right. With the lymphatic system, we try and say that we treat from proximal to distal. So that means closest to the heart first, because this is where all the main activity is. And if you can clear that rubbish truck, empty the truck and it's clear, that means there's no traffic jams at the other nodes further down. So you clear the one up top closest and that's clear, then you can move to the next one and the next one, it will all flow through. So for example, with your brushing, if we start with the top section of the arm, and again, it's just brushing up, 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 and underneath in towards that lymph node, towards the armpit. You do the first section of the arm and then you come from the wrist and you sweep up to the elbow area. And you come through here.
Another set of lymphs in that.
And the inside of the inside of the elbow, sorry, there's lymph node here. Yeah, so you're brushing to there. So you're thinking inside of elbow, armpit, drawing towards, and then you finish with the hand, and then one big sweep at the end, drawing all back to that major lymph node under the armpit. So when you're on the shoulder, again, you're drawing around to the front, because when you're at the back of the body, you've got the lymph nodes either near the heart or the armpit. So you're drawing forward.
Wow.
Like that. So that's an example. And then for the leg, the same thing, starting from knee to groin, sweeping up, 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 and you're lifting the brush off and putting back on each time, because as we said before, it's only a one-way valve, so you're not up and down. You're starting at the knee and you're drawing up, and you're starting at the knee and you're drawing up, and you just do that. Up the thigh, and then you go from ankle to knee. And once you start knowing where the lymph nodes are, brushing becomes really easy, or working with all the other different tools that I'll use in my treatments. But again, just like you have the inside of the elbow where there are lymph nodes, behind the back of the knee, there are actually lymph nodes. So if you then start at the ankle and draw up the shin, up the calf, and you're drawing around towards the back of the knee, and then finish with feet, and then foot the whole way up to the groin as one big sweep. So it's the same kind of a technique, whether it's arms or legs as your major limbs, to draw all that lymphatic fluid up and help to drain those major lymph nodes of here, here, behind the knee, groin, etc.
Okay. Amazing. So just to recap, because there are, you can familiarize yourself, and you post a lot about this, about where the lymphs are, and just explaining techniques. So it's worth checking out the Detox Method Instagram. So we've got the lymphs in these regions, and if you imagine them as like dumpster trucks, so we want to clear the one that's closest to the heart first. And so brushing, if we imagine this is a brush, we put the brush down, brushing back up, lift the brush again, and then bring it back down, and keep on doing that in a motion back towards the heart. Is that correct? And then from this region down to there, or all the way back up?
Yep. So first of all, top part.
Yep.
Second part.
Yep.
Hands.
Hands.
Yep. And then it's the whole thing.
All the way up. Okay.
All the way up.
All right. Got it. I'm glad we cleared that up. Perfect.
Can I just say one more thing whilst we're talking about brushing and technique? Please. The tummy, obviously, major area of digestion. A lot of activity happens, I call it the engine room, the center of the body. So when you're talking about brushing the tummy, there are a few different ways. As people get comfortable with the technique, as people become more comfortable with the technique of brushing their body, there's other ways you can teach it. But the most simple way is basically start at 12 o'clock at the top under your ribs and sweep down to your left hip first and around in a clockwise motion. So you've got 12 at the top, your left hip is 3 o'clock, pelvis area is 6, 9, other hip 12.
All right. So moving in that clockwise motion.
Clockwise direction in just a circle, and you don't remove the brush there. You can just keep it moving around. And a really nice thing to do at that time is to do a bit of breath work. So,
I love
blowing it down.
Other elements. It's like, while I'm doing this, inhale.
Exactly.
My teeth.
Why not? Why not? The other reason though for that though, as whilst it's lovely, we do love all these nice wellbeing modalities, which is what I play with in my method, but this one actually is also a proven way to activate the lymphatic system, because as you touched on earlier, Daniela, the lymphatic system does not have a pump. So breath work and using the diaphragm and your lungs to expand and release, that is acting like the heart to help work your lymphatic system. So that's how the lymphatic system works on its own, which probably I could have touched on that earlier, but makes sense now. So
it ties into the conversation now.
All comes in where we're at. So that's another reason why that we do in that way. The breath work really helps.
Anyone wondering, the diaphragm sits directly underneath the rib cage just here, and it's a huge band of muscles, from my understanding. I'm learning it anatomy and physiology as part of my.
I love it too. Yes, indeed.
On every inhale, it expands and pushes downwards, and on every exhale, it contracts and pushes back up. Yeah. So it aids with the kind of pumping motion that we're discussing that the lymphatic system doesn't have, because it doesn't have a heart or an organ that assists with it.
And on that note, again, another one that's good to say is that a lot of people wonder then, well, okay, so I've got this system and you're telling me that it's there and it doesn't have a pump, and so how does it work? So that is how it is, through breath and it is through movement. But as I explained earlier, it is very slow moving. It's a very sluggish system, and it needs all the help that it can get, particularly if you've been unwell, run down, stressed, all those things I spoke about earlier. And if our lymphatic system stopped working, as a matter of fact, in 48 to 72 hours, no lymphatic system working, you would die from toxicity. So it's not just, yes, it is a major part of the body's functioning, processing. It is so important, and in actual fact, until more recent times, quite overlooked.
Wow, I'm so glad it's coming mainstream. You know how the rest of the body, you kind of go back towards the heart. Is there a particular like pattern on the face that people should be aiming for? Or
definitely, well said. So on the face, you generally sweep outwards, and the reason for that is you're draining the face. So you think about, all through your nose as being the main center of your face, and you've got all of your sinus and nasal passages and everything else. So you're basically sweeping out to the side, and the reason you do that is you always want to bring it back down again. So it's out and down, out and down. And then if you're talking about once you come to the forehead, it's generally sort of up and around, up and around.
Okay.
And then obviously across your eyebrows, you're out to the side.
We're looking at keeping this nice and short, but knowing us too, we can always just keep on going down into detail. Are there any tips or tricks or anything that you kind of feel like you've left off the table, or even a health tip that you want to share with everyone that, you incorporate in your day-to-day life that just you've seen wonders?
Well, thank you. I do actually, and there's many, and this is the whole thing that I feel like I could just talk to you and to your followers forever, because well-being's where it's at, and that's what we're all about. So my favourite health tip, can I be cheeky and say two things I really love?
What, we're already 15 minutes.
Come on, it's all good. We all know water is the elixir of life, and it's sometimes the most simple thing is the most profound. And I just think that water, and they say that the lymph is your body's water system. It helps get rid of excess water in the body. That swelling and puffiness can also be, if not the toxins and bacteria of the lymph nodes being infiltrated, it can be having excess fluid in the body, and drinking water helps you get rid of water.
Oh, sorry,
what was that? Sorry,
it's in the lymph system. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but so the water is actually infiltrated into the lymph system, which can make you appear.
Yes, and so that's what the lymph system also does. It's the filtration system of the body. So it's not just toxins and pathogens, etc. It's also creating the harmony, the equilibrium of the correct amount of water within the body. So that's why it's really important also. So drinking water and lymph go hand in hand, but water, as we all know, is life. So drinking more water always. Yep. And another water tip is probably showering never having a too hot shower, because hot showers actually can dehydrate the system and really dry out your skin. The skin is one of the largest organs, so skin health is important. So you don't want to be drying out the skin, having your shower water running too hot. And then the golden ticket that I'm sure most of your followers have heard of these days is cold water therapy. So finishing with a 30-second blast of cold water, which also really helps to flush any excess toxins. Again, it really gets you wanting to breathe, and you need to try and keep calm through that. And that's a process that people get better at it. But the drinking water, not showering with too hot water, and making sure that at the end, if you can, a 30-second blast of cold water will literally give you so much pep in your step and have you feeling amazing.
Amazing. And I'll send this podcast to you, and I might even link it in the notes below. But I listened to a podcast about cold blasting and the results that it actually has on raising our dopamine levels for a sustained period of time afterwards. So it's great from that perspective. And like, dopamine is really responsible for motivation and just overall general feeling of well-being and happiness. So really, really great tips. Thank you so much for joining me today, Bea. It has been an absolute pleasure. And please, if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to head directly to her or place them down in the comments below. Bea will be monitoring them. But this has been amazing. And I hope that you've gathered something yourself from this experience. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, Daniela. Thanks so much.
Thank you.